Hi, so thank you for tuning in to the Welsh Athletics Coaching Insights. I'm Ryan Jones, lead on throws for Wales. And with me this evening, I have Ian Robinson, coach from Wrexham Athletics Club. And I'd like Ian just to introduce yourself and give yourself, a brief description.
Hi, I'm Ian. I have been involved in athletics since more or less the age of 2. I grew up on the grounds of a school where the PE teacher was very keen on athletics. He was years ahead of his time, and I joined his lessons and listened to what he said and learned a lot from him. By the age of 5, I had thrown my first stair rods, which I pulled out from the carpet on the stairs, which wasn't very safe, and as a javelin. And I just looked at all the older boys and girls, or boys should I say, throwing things, and just it became part of me, which is what caused me eventually to finish up as a teacher instead of an accountant.
Did you put those stair rods back?
I did after I'd finished throwing them. Made a few holes in the lawn.
And you said obviously your chemistry teacher, Bob Burrell, was the UK #1 hurdler at the time. He had a large influence on yourself.
Yes, he encouraged my athletics. His favourite event was actually discus, although he was obviously a brilliant hurdler. And he taught me a certain amount, taught me a full turn. Prior to that, I'd been largely self-taught. And I still very occasionally see him. He's still around officiating, although he's quite a lot older.
Okay, and obviously you were a decathlete.
Yeah.
And you knew obviously Jeff Ward from north Wales. Yeah,
we met up at certainly at the Northern England decathlon championships. He always beat me, but he never beat me on discus, or javelin for that matter. But he was the one who got me back to come and compete at Wrexham after I'd retired from my athletic career, and also got me back into coach again, because he knew obviously that I'd been involved in coaching for a long time.
So you owe a lot to Jeff in terms of getting you back into coaching within Wrexham. And
yes, yeah. He just wanted me to do it, knew that I'd do a good job, and obviously it's worked out.
Okay, great. So just to go back a little bit, you qualified as it was back then, a AAA coach in 1969.
Yeah.
Just a question, do you see any large differences between the coach education when you first went through in 1969 to the current coach educational system?
Well, yes, there's a lot of difference. In some ways, I qualified while I was training as a PE teacher, and so some of the things that come into current coach education, certainly for coaches who are developing, are the anatomy physiology side of coaching, which were already within the course I was doing as a trainee PE teacher. So I largely went into the coaching qualification based on my existing knowledge at that time of throwing. And it was a general qualification. It wasn't specifically throwing at that time. Yeah. And I don't know actually whether there were specific breaks in areas of coaching. It was more or less, I think, finding out whether you knew how to deal with athletes.
Yeah. And obviously, you say here 41 years after first going through that AAA qualification in 1969, you had to re-qualify because the system had changed?
Yes. When I started, I think the system changed in the January, and had I gone back. I had sort of 3 years out doing nothing after I retired from teaching. Had I started in December, I wouldn't have had to requalify, but I didn't start again until January. And the result was that I had to requalify. So I did a core module. They allowed me to fast track through to the core module, and then followed up with a throw specific training session or test. And on both occasions, the leading coach at the course thanked me for my help, which was quite funny.
Great. So obviously during this this time during the lockdown, you coached a lot of athletes, with over 40 athletes currently being coached by you on Power of 10, and obviously with Sabrina Fortune, you know, the current world champion from 29 Dubai, having a big PB in the final round to win. How are you coping with the lockdown, and how are you engaging with your athletes?
Well, largely with Sabrina in particular, she is still training at home, which is quite limiting. She sends me videos of what she's been doing, and I analyze the videos, and then prior to the next training session, I tell her what I want her to work on, and she then works on the things that I've suggested, and I make her write it down so that she's got specific individual tasks to work on. And that again gets videoed and sent back to me for analysis before the next session. She can't do full throws because she hasn't got the distance in her garden. In fact, I'm not even sure she could do throws off her knees, because I think she'd probably break the fence at the other end of the lawn. So all the work we're doing is drills, basically. And in that respect, it's rather like part of a winter training session, but quite useful, because it's giving us the time to work specifically on small areas that I have over the time said, well, we can manage without that being sorted out, but would be better if it was sorted out.
Yeah.
And it's going to be quite interesting when she starts throwing again to see how that ties in with distance in terms of her throwing.
Okay, great. So what I'm hearing is you're really just changing the focus at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's great. Something you can work on being at home. So just a question about, obviously, many athletes that you compete in, and me personally knowing some of them. What qualities do you most look for within an athlete?
The most essential quality is the desire to improve at whatever level. And if that desire isn't there, the athlete basically, I don't think, will improve no matter what I do. So part of my function is to encourage and get them to be more enthusiastic about what they're doing, and to attempt to do what I'm asking them to do. I always ask them when they're throwing or whatever to give me their opinion of what they thought about that throw, to make sure that they are understanding what I've said. And I always coach through understanding of what they're doing, rather than just say, do this, without explaining why. From their point of view, they need perseverance, they need to work hard, and especially when they're with me, they need to be working, because if I'm coaching a lot of athletes, I can't watch one athlete all the time. So I need them to be working continually so that I can pick up even from a distance. I have all the throws at one end at Wrexham, at one end of the track. So I might be at the shot circle, but at the same time, I'm watching what's happening in the discus and the hammer and on the javelin run up, and shouting across what I've seen, so that I'm sort of multifunctioning. So they need to have that determination.
So they really need that innate quality of really pushing themselves like everyone.
Yeah.
So obviously you coach all 4 of the throws. Yourself being an ex-decathlete, do you coach other events as well?
I would if I had time.
Okay.
I did recently do some high jump at a North Wales development session for a multi-event session. And I occasionally talk to other athletes on all the events, you know, particularly the technical events. But obviously, my time, there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
And there's only so many hours that I'm at the track. So I have to limit that in order to work on the throwers. But when I get the chance, yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay, great. Just another question that we've been asked. Obviously, you coach a numerous of athletes. Can you give me sort of a description or of an outline of one of your favorite sessions? So where they'll just be the throws, or is it a certain drill for the throws, or is it a physical exercise?
Well, I use a lot of kinesthetic training methods where I manipulate body parts into the correct position for what I want. I also use, I have a long piece of bungee rubber that I attach to the athletes. Once again, it's both for physical resistance work, but also if I've got a thrower that is falling one way or another in a discus circle, I can attach this elastic and pull them either deliberately in the direction they're falling, so they learn how to get the balance back in the other direction, or alternatively, pull them against it to get them into the right position. And I can put that in a loop around them so that I can stand safely while they're throwing, and they can throw safely while being manipulated while they're actually throwing. And the same for javelin. Yeah. I used it with Sabrina when she was learning to reverse. So I deliberately pulled her out of the front of the circle as she threw, and she then had to go into a reverse in order not to get pulled out of the front of the circle and resist and get her balance back after releasing. And that worked very well.
That's great. So that's really adapting and changing those coaching methods. So now moving on, obviously for me, you coach multiple talented athletes across North Wales, and yourself as a coach are a really strong cornerstone to Wrexham and North Wales. What do you see the difference, and we'll go with Sabrina, with her mindset, her focus compared to other athletes? Is there any difference, or is it coming back to that sort of innate quality that she just wants it?
Well, I mean, her disability is learning difficulties. Yeah. So where any athlete will learn by multiple repetitions of what they're doing in order to get muscle memory involved, in her case, it's more essential because she won't sequence. If I ask her to do 5 things in succession, there's no chance that she'll remember all of them. In fact, if I ask her to do too many things, she probably won't remember any. Yeah. And that does apply to any athlete, but more to her. In terms of the effort she puts into training, I'm absolutely convinced that had she not been a para-athlete, she would not now be throwing anywhere near the distances she is, because her motivation was to become the best in the world. Yeah. And I think that motivation is far higher than to become say the 10th best in the UK, although she, I think, will certainly get to that level. And I think it's a far higher motivation once you get to the ultimate reward of being the best. Yeah. And to stay there again now is also motivation, because other people are trying to knock you down.
And on that motivation, obviously, the Paralympics at Tokyo 2021 has now moved to 2021. Are you finding it hard to keep that motivation going with her?
Not particularly. What I've said to her is a shot putter's career is a long one, and she is, I think, 22, 23, and the girl who has the world record, Ava Durska, who Sabrina will undoubtedly beat her record and has beaten her, was still throwing at the age of 40. So she's potentially got another 18 years. And I certainly think she's got at least another 6 or 7 years to improve. After that, it may be maintaining.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, shot put especially is sort of a longer development event. So, and
Yeah.
she's only a baby within the sport. So just on to the next question, Ian. And this is an important one for me because I like to learn off experienced coaches. Looking back, and if you were to give some advice to new coaches coming into the sport, what advice would you give them moving forward?
Well, every athlete is different, and the same thing will not necessarily work for one athlete that works for another. You perpetually have to question what you're doing and whether it's right. Over the years, I had certain very fixed ideas, some of which I've modified even in the last year, just by looking at other people. I think it's a great help, but also can be a disadvantage to necessarily model what you're doing on the best in the world, because the best in the world will do what they can because of certain attributes that they have. For example, Valerie Adams is a giant of a woman, and for her to use rotational shot would probably be a disadvantage, because she's so big and the circle is relatively small for a person of that size. The result of her gliding meant that a lot of I think 7 out of the top 10 women in the world recently were still gliding because they were modeling themselves on Valerie Adams.
Yeah.
But that isn't the right thing to do. I'm certain Sabrina throws well over a meter further rotating than she ever would gliding.
Yeah, and that's something I picked up is people kind of look at and try and imitate, but you have to do what's best for your body shape and for your natural movement patterns. And like you said, Valerie Adams being 6'5", there's not many female shot putters of that height across the globe. But that's great, and to take it forward. You mentioned, Ian, earlier that you had in the early days of coaching, you had some great meetups and discussions with coaches such as Jeff Cage, Peter Tancred, and you learned a lot about the javelin of Fatima Whitbread's first coach. Is that something that you would push with new coaches, is to seek advice from those type of people, athletes and coaches?
Yeah, always. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Good coaches are good coaches because they want to help other people. And if you ask them questions, they'll answer and they'll tell you what they know. There is the feeling that people have, well, if I give away my secrets, then other people's athletes are going to beat my athletes. And I think you have to get away from that as a basic thought. You've got to actually know that your athletes are going to do well because of the way you coach them, and that giving other people ideas to use and methods is a good thing, because that way the standard of everybody improves, and the higher the standard of everybody, the higher the base standard, the higher the standard will be for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And there are no secrets. People have been thrown a long way for a long time. I just feel the person is more on how the coach adapts and how you empathy with the athlete and going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, Ian. So we're going to move on to towards the end now of the discussion, and a bit of fun from my point of view. But I just first, people won't know about your hobby away from the sport, and we have had brief discussions on this. And also you being a senior judge on the Cactus Society in the UK. Can you just highlight a bit on that? Because I think it's a great thing for people to know about yourself.
Well, again, I always say I started my athletics at the age of 5. I got my first cactus at the age of 5, and I told my headmistress that I was going to marry my wife at the age of 5, and I did. It's just, everything started at 5. I am currently the longest standing qualified cactus judge, and it's a professional qualification for the society in the UK. I've judged more national shows than anybody else. I would have been judging a national show, it happens every 4 years, this summer, but it obviously got cancelled because of the coronavirus. I have about 1,000 square feet of Cactus Greenhouse. I'm at the moment erecting a new Cactus Greenhouse over the top of the old one, which I put up 40 years ago. It's wooden, and it is now collapsing through rust and rot, rust of the screws and rot of the wood. So I've bought a second-hand commercial one, which I'm putting up over the top of it, and then once I've done that, I'll take the other one down inside it.
I won't show you my small cactus I have in my kitchen, Ian. I feel ashamed of it. So, yeah. But last 3 quick fire questions now, so the people out there get to know you. So, 3 words to describe yourself, please.
Old, ugly. I don't know. Very enthusiastic in what I do.
Yeah,
is probably the biggest thing. I don't like stopping once I start doing something.
Yeah, definitely, and we can see that in what the people may not know out there. The Wrexham Throws Final Fling is something that you started, and over the last 3-4 years has had over 500 competitors every September. So I think that is a thank you from me to you and all the other volunteers for putting that on. What is your favorite day of the week?
Every day is the same.
At the moment, it very much is.
I've got sheep and hens as well, and they don't stop because it's Saturday or Sunday.
You don't know. So, and the last question for me is, doesn't have to be athletics based. What is your favorite sporting moment?
I don't know. Possibly Sabrina winning the World Championship, but also Wales winning the Grand Slam.
Yes. I suppose Sabrina in Dubai was, a very much personal thing to yourself, and I saw how happy you were, and it was a great result. And obviously, it's good for Wales to win the Grand Slam, so that's good. All right, then, Ian. Well, that covers off our coaching insights with yourself, Ian. Is there anything you'd like to add going forward? Any last bits of words or anything?
I don't know. I just like athletes improving. Yeah. I like to see people getting better at whatever level.
Okay. The last question for me would be, as we're in the lockdown, what is the one thing you're going to take away from being in this lockdown?
I have learned how to coach at a distance, and I value my time for myself, possibly more than I did. I don't know whether that's true. I'm looking forward to getting back to it. The contact with athletes. Because it is difficult doing it at distance, particularly with the less knowledgeable athletes, the developing athletes, find it harder to work without me.
Yeah, Okay, great. Well, that concludes our talk, Ian. I wish you all the best, and I will speak to you soon, okay?
Okay, brilliant. Thank